This is the CreaseCast.
Let's conclude an awful... Well, I mean, it was awful for them, but for us, the CreaseCast, Lach and Cody, it actually was about the most interesting season we could have possibly had in our first season as a duo, as a show, because we got pretty much everything under the rainbow. Like, we had, preseason fights between teammates, like Tyler Mott trying to kill his own teammate.
I forgot about that.
We had Jim Benning, or we had like the awful start that resulted in Jim Benning doing a press conference where he basically laid out his non-forward thinking or plans for progression or long-term thinking. We had the live day to day. He talks to Francesco Aquilini every day, which was like so funny in hindsight now that the ownership talks are back in question again. But then we had the P1 variant outbreak, the 2 wins and 11 losses in February or March or whatever that basically tanked their entire season.
Yeah.
We had the schedule change or the schedule release that resulted in, JT Miller coming out and having to put the team on his back and being like, this is bullshit. How the fuck do you expect us to play after this?
Simultaneously throwing a huge shot at management and ownership.
Yes.
Very rightfully so.
Followed by Bo Horvat also taking a shot at management because they were like, what's it like to do you feel supported by management and ownership? And he said, we feel very supported by the fans and our family and friends. And that was it. And then after that, the team looks like complete shit, like expectedly, get bounced from playoffs, and now we've got talks of players possibly wanting out in the offseason. There's questions over like a crisis in faith in management between the players and the fan base. There's one of the hometown kids that was signed to a deal that had been laughed at since the start of the year get shelved by the team rightfully after being accused in a civil suit for allegations of sexual misconduct. Pretty much everything, literally everything that could go wrong. And that's not even including the off-season moves that happened in September and October that blew up the core that seemed to be on the brink of breaking out after the playoff bubble. So, and this all happened in a 5-month span. It is May 19th, 2021, everyone. We are recording in the middle of the Boston-Washington overtime game and the start of the Winnipeg-Edmonton game. And it's basically the final...
We're not even going to talk about it.
Yeah, we have no reason to talk about it because
we have no time. Just simply don't.
Like Jim Benning, we ran out of time.
Yeah, you gave that list of all the things, and there were so many things in there that like little details that I forgot, and all I can think about is right now. Do you remember, Cody? There was once a time this season where our biggest problem as a fan base was that Braden Holtby couldn't get his turtles across the border. That was once the biggest issue facing the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah. And now look where we are. Oh, what I wouldn't give to go back to what are their names? They were good names too. There was I think they were, I don't remember, but Braden Holtby's tortoises or turtles. I guess tortoises because they can live on dry land. That couldn't make it over the border. He got stuck at on the American side. Yeah. And it was like, golly gee, what a heart. This certainly won't be an omen of any kind.
No, it was the weirdest omen, too. It wasn't even like
it was a cute one.
Yeah, it wasn't like, lightning struck Rogers Arena twice on the eve of the first game of the season. No, it was like, this new goalie who was signed to like a pretty, pricey deal. And, despite like having a really awful season. And his big issue was he was stuck at the border trying to get his turtles across.
Yeah.
And so like at the time you're like, this is cute, this is fun, but it was just an omen of everything that's going to come for such an awful season.
Totally. I do think I remember their names because I remember that at the time Tim Hortons sent them like a gift like a welcome basket, because I think their tortoises' names were like Maple Bar and like Honey Dip or something. Like there were donut
they're
names.
named after donuts. Okay.
Yeah, I think they named their tortoises after donuts, and so that's prompted Tim Hortons to send them like donuts, and like I think they got like Tim Hortons hockey cards with like the turtles on them. Yeah, right. I think so. Something like that. That was such a nice time. That was such a we're all so naive, young and naive, and then
truly
just the literally like we don't have to mince words here. This was the worst season in the history of the Vancouver Canucks by a country mile. It blew the Keenan Messier year or whatever else might have been out there, the Torts year, just out of the water. Like it everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and then some other bullshit happened on top of it. Like it was just all of it. Like you just hit garbage bingo, like a full, but not like 5 in a row. It's just the full card. Yep, entirely dotted up, every single thing.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting because I do believe that one Willie Desjardins season, like 2016, 2017, when like the starting roster included like a first line that had like Michael Chaput on it or Jason Megna, and they legitimately tried to run that as their top 6 for the like first half of the season, and it was a disaster. Like I feel like for on ice product, the Canucks had their struggles in the early parts. They had struggles late after their COVID outbreak, but I feel like, I mean, the play wasn't as bad as that 2016-17 season, because that season had 2 15-game losing streaks, I think. 15 or 9, I can't remember, but it was 2 of Willie Desjardins has a record in Canucks coaching history as having 5 of the worst losing streaks in a 3-year span as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. And 2 of them came in the same season in like a 3-month span. So I said this on the Power of the Towel podcast the other day that like I remember watching every single game that season and being like, oh my God, I know I watched all these episodes, these games, but my brain has purged them from my memory to block them out. And you had a wonderful tweet earlier today where you had basically said, thanks for the season, Canucks. We won't forget you, though we will try. And that's like kind of what my brain has been doing for me to the benefit of my mental health, because the 2016-17 season for me was the worst on-ice product I think I've ever watched of a season of hockey. It was unwatchable. This season, you couldn't fault the players. They were trying. No. The chemistry wasn't there. They fucked up the locker room chemistry by sending out all the most beloved players that were the most important to the core. Whereas in 2016 and 2017, there was nothing there. It was Bo Horvat, the Sedins, and a bunch of awful, awful players that they signed and expected to somehow reach playoffs with. Like they legitimately thought this was a team and a core that was going to win them playoff games. And it was
and then they awful. Finished 29th out of 30.
Who knew?
And what's crazy about that is that at least then there was kind of hope, like in terms of, well, they're going to get they're going to have the second best lottery odds in the NHL. Yeah. And even if they don't win it, even if they don't win it, they're still going to get a high pick, which I believe turned into Elias Pettersson. So hell yeah. So that in a way, so to a certain extent, that was worth it. Man, it's busy by your place right now. There's like planes going by. There's like people. That's fun.
I'm sorry. There's like like a motorcade of motorcycles going outside of my house right now. Like,
That's so funny. Well, again, fitting for the end, fitting for the end of the season, just like all the noise in the world. Chaos, exactly. It's just the end of times, basically, for this city right now. But yeah, there was reason to kind of at least be hopeful of, well, this team sucks, but at least there's kind of and maybe it wasn't fully by design, at least from what the management said. But right at the beginning, you knew, yeah, this season's not going to be a year where they do anything besides the playoffs. This is just this is going to be the year of pain, one of the years of pain before it starts to get better, sort of thing. This year, on the other hand, where do you go? Because yes, the on-ice product theoretically was better this year, and I guess this would be a good conversation for another show, I guess, which is well, what constitutes a worse season? Is it whether the product on the ice is bad, or is it all of the situation around it that makes it bad, that makes it worse, sort of thing? Right. And because honestly, that could depend. What you constitute a bad season could be very different, which is what, and for the Torts here, for example, they weren't terrible. They weren't utterly bottom of the basement team that year. But then you go into the things like Tortorella storm in the locker room, Gillis getting fired, just all of the, all the outside things that came with it. Kessler clearly not wanting to be there anymore. Luongo getting benched. All of the things surrounding the games made it so much worse.
So Drance had a great tweet about all of this stuff before, today, where at the end of the season, talk about there was the logo controversy, right? When people were asking if it's if it's offensive because it's not designed by First Nations people. Right. An anti-mask anthem singer who got fired on Twitter. P1, you mentioned P1. Dismal. Yep. Leaves. I don't know what some of these mean. I will say. What was the dismal one? Jeez, there's some.
That's the problem. Is there was so many bad things. You can only selectively remember a few of them.
Yeah.
Closing
the time was
injuries
10:40. Team 1040 closed. Team 1040 closed down.
Oh
this year.
Yeah, okay.
That was another thing that happened. That was what closing time, I think, wasn't it?
No, because it was time of your life, not closing time. Unless he's referring to that, but
I think he's referring to that, in terms of just because he had to fit it all in, and so I think, and then a bunch of people replied with we didn't start the fire,
yeah,
which is perfect. Accurate, very accurate.
And,
so many,
and in his list too, there's one positive, and it's just umlaut season, because
that's right.
That's literally it. Niels Hoglander was the best for my money's worth, and we'll get into this later when we do our year-end rewards. Spoiler for what the end of the show is going to look like, because the middle chunk of it is going to be basically us ranting about what a mess this Canucks team is.
But you knew that anyway, didn't you?
Yeah, you guys knew what was coming.
You knew what you signed up for today. This is
exactly.
We're bringing the fire today. This is a big show for us. This is a big show for everybody.
Yeah, but Niels Hoglander is the only, for my money's worth, the best forward for the Canucks all season. Brought it every single night. Might not have been leading the team in points in any statistical category, but the fact that he was a young kid fighting on every single shift, really battling every time he was on the ice, dynamic, just they needed without him. Oh my God, this is the most depressing. Then it takes over my previous critiques of 2016-17. Then this season really is just completely worthless, and they got nothing out of it. But I don't know. Do you want to do an infinity blocker choice for the last 4 games? I mean,
no,
I'll tell you my pick.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
We can segue into our kind of little talk.
CreaseCast block. Pick. Oh, wrong one. There we go.
There you go.
Infinity blocker. Go for it.
My pick, even though he probably doesn't deserve it because he didn't really do much except log ice time, it's Alex Edler, who might have played his final games as a Vancouver Canuck, although being scratched in the final game of the year might kind of draw some question marks on that, and we can kind of get into this a bit. He was really going for the 100th goal thing. They were giving him power play one time, a lot a lot of power
They
play
were
one time. It was pretty
trying
much
to
like
get that 100 goal. They were trying to
like
get
they
him
weren't
that
even
100
trying to
goal.
win. The motive for every single game was let's see how we can get Eddie his 100th goal, and they tried. They really, really tried. He almost had a great look with like a
He
cross-eyed
had it,
seam
and
from
then
Schmidt. Yeah,
and
like
then Brock stole it from
he had
with
two
the
things
deflection
stolen
in
by Brock
front.
Besser. He had the deflection in front at one point, and then he had the empty netter where he probably could have passed it to Edler, and he didn't bother. He was like, "Fuck you."
Oh my god,
This is for all the look offs on Power Play
all,
One when I
yeah,
first made my debut.
all the times you didn't pass to me.
Yeah, so
Incredible.
I mean, I'll throw it to you where I'm like, okay, because he was benched in the final game of the season, didn't crack 100. Do you think he's coming back, or do you think maybe he didn't ever give a shit about getting 100 goals, and there was just no sense in him flying to Edmond or to Calgary for a meaningless game?
Honestly, right now, it's very 50-50 for me right now. I could very well see him being like, yeah, I'm done. This is it for me. I'm ready I'm ready to call it a day. The Canucks not ready, or the Canucks not wanting to necessarily re-sign him, that sort of thing. I could very well see that being an option. And in terms of like the whether that was his last game or not thing, I do think that I would agree with that sentiment. Fully had it been a home game, like if it had been the last game of the season in Vancouver,
Right.
you and I talked about this before the show. I think then if he had sat, then I'd be like, oh, okay, he's coming back. But because it was in Calgary, I'm kind of like, I'm not as sure that means that necessarily means he's not retiring, because I could very well see him being like, or the team being like, well, let's make his last game a game in Vancouver, since nobody's going to be in the crowd anyway. It's not like in a normal year, like say when the Sedins retired and they played their last game technically in Edmonton,
Right.
where there were probably a lot of fans, Canucks fans, who bought tickets to that game to go see them in their final opportunity, their final game ever.
Yeah.
And whether that was locals or people flying in. This year there's not that. So you don't really, if you want to make their last game special, it kind of does make more sense that you would do it at home if the fans don't come into factor in. But again,
Right.
I could also see a scenario where they go to him and are like, "Yeah, we'll bring you back." Again, I would prefer they only do that if they're gonna bring him in as like a bottom six or like a strictly third pairing guy playing a much smaller amount of ice time. Maybe even not playing every single game. Like you're switching between him and a seventh defenseman.
Right.
Because very clearly this year, like it was obvious that he took a step back speed wise and his durability.
He looked his age for the first
Yes.
time.
Yes, which is impressive because it took him a while.
Yeah.
It took him a while to get there. But yeah, I think with Edler, I do think that it very well could be one or the other. And I tweeted this during the game against the last game, the second to last game. How it's like it at the time it was nuts to think about the fact that could have been Alex Edler's last game in Vancouver as a Canuck, and it was like the 12th most important thing going on, like the 12th most important Canucks storyline in that game. Bonkers, like just bonkers. Any other year, first thing on everyone's mind. This year, not even like top 5 in terms of concern, which sucks for Edler if it does end up happening to be his last game. But you know what? We'll see. There's some off-season stuff to go through before we get an answer. We might not get an answer on that for a while.
No, because I mean, before they even get to the offseason of like what do they do with like the people they still have signed to contracts, the guys that they need to re-sign to contracts, they have a draft to go through, a draft where they had originally had top 5 odds to get first overall, and they did what Vancouver Canucks do, and they won the final meaningless games of the season and dropped to the 10th lowest odds to pick first overall in a season or in a year where they say like there's maybe 10 or 11 good players in the top end of the draft. That's it. So Canuck luck, baby. That's all it is.
Not only did they do that, not only did they somehow like completely like tank their odds at a good draft pick, they did it while also still finishing dead last in the North Division.
Yeah,
like they didn't even get the satisfaction of being like, well, we passed Ottawa. Nope, you got neither. You got absolutely neither. There was a quote I wanted to. I've used this before. I'm using a quote around surrounding a different team. If you've ever gone onto the Secret Base YouTube channel, which is like formerly like the SB Nation Sports YouTube channel, they have a guy named John Boyce who I really love. He makes these great, really in-depth videos. You and I have talked about it before. But he makes like these in-depth like statistical videos, and he and another guy there, they did an entire 4-hour documentary on the history of the Seattle Mariners. And it's amazing, by the way. You should check it out. It's absolutely amazing. One of the best sports documentaries I've ever seen. It's like in 6 parts. But one of the key phrases in that series, because the Seattle Mariners, much like the Canucks, never won a championship. They've done some cool things. They've never won it all. They've never even been to a World Series. But the quote that John Boyce used for the Mariners, I'm going to use for the Canucks, is that the Vancouver Canucks aren't competitors, they're protagonists. They're not really competing in hockey so much as hockey is happening to them. This is the Canucks. And that's like sometimes they'll do something incredible. Like the Canucks have done some nutty things in their history before, just things that make no sense. Like and this is one of them, like in that sense of they always lose when they shouldn't, and they always win when they shouldn't. Yes. They're so good at doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Like truly, it's
such a talent. They're so good at it. Like they would have finished with the best odds in the draft lottery that year that you were talking about had they not swept a Southern California road trip.
Yep.
Like
when they won the last 7 games of the season or something like that, or last 4 or whatever.
It
was something dumb where it was just like, of course, you just fucked up everything, you morons.
Every time they do it, every time it is mind-boggling, and now we're going into a situation where, honestly, like the biggest story about all of this going into like the offseason and everything is, obviously yesterday there was the whole rumors that possibly there was going to be change coming to the Canucks. Rumors have been floating around all season, really, because the season's been such a disaster. And then Elliot Friedman drops the bomb yesterday that Jim Benning had been informed by the team that he'll be returning as GM in 2021-22.
Yeah.
It's time to get into this. This is what people have been waiting for. This is the big one. This is the biggest story of
I almost don't even want to, because it's just like that entire day. It was like you said, like Edler trying to get 100 was like the 12th most important story of the day, because there was just so much else going on. And it began with Alex Blair from formerly of Sportsnet 650 of the on-air podcast with Israel Fair.
I
believe you guested on that program as well on radio one of those days. Didn't you know?
No, I was on Canucks Central Saturday with why am I blanking on names? Jamie Dodd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was on that one, but Izzy has been on the CreaseCast before. He was a guest on the show. So, and obviously, George is also a friend of the show. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. So.
Yeah.
The day starts off with Alex Blair being like, pretty sure that there are changes coming, basically like setting the groundwork of what was going to come for the day, and that. Right. The ownership group, after all these speculative rumors about getting involved with the Cardinals and doing an audit of the organization, looking at changes, the day starts with change is coming. It's going to happen probably tonight. That started in the early morning, and everything snowballed from there. Then it came out that the Sedins were somehow involved in discussions with entering the team in a advisory or operational management capacity. And after everyone's freaking out, being like, "Oh, why are they going back to the alumni well? This is 2016 or 2014 all over again when they got Trevor Linden to be a puppet. Why are they ruining their legacies?" And then Darren Dreger confirms, like, Sedins, they're getting looks from the ownership group. And then end of the night, or not even end of the night. It was like what, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Elliot Friedman saying, confirm. Just want to confirm, Jim Benning has been told with 24 hours notice that he will be returning next season. And it was like all of these people speculating over like these drastic changes that were going to come finally to an organization that has basically just like failed upwards and downwards over the last 7 years while accomplishing nothing. They don't make the one move that would actually restore confidence in the fan base. Arms thrown up worldwide. I'm sure a lot of massage therapists and chiropractors got a lot of appointments from all the people throwing their arms so violently in the air out of nowhere. And it's just so deflating to see like the groundwork was laid, the thought was entered into the ethos of Canucks fans that possibly progressive change was going to happen that would lead to the improvement, or at least a restoration of trust in the organization itself, beginning with ownership recognizing that they needed to, clean house in their management staff and start fresh with a team that just looked completely out of sorts from the on-ice product to the off-ice product and basically was a laughing stock in the league, as confirmed numerous times by different insiders that they are just basically being laughed at by other GMs, other agents. And then Friedman drops the hammer, says, nope, he's back, baby, get used to it. But Sedins are definitely probably going to sit in on the exit interviews. They're going to, enter the Canucks organization in some kind of capacity. Don't doubt their ability to do it. And it's disappointing because I don't know. It just seems like a delaying of the inevitable when fans are back in the stadium and it's the exact same roster as last season. Like, we'll get into the VC or the Plains of Highmore, the Sea of Granland. It's pretty much going to be the same lineup, but the most important players are going to be on infinitely more expensive deals. And the improvements that should have happened in last offseason, which were delayed and instead allocated to awful assets that contributed nothing this season, are going to be returning for next. And it's just going to be more of the same with no clear plan or long-term outlook in mind that is going to lead to like a turnaround in the short term that will result in better on-ice product and results that lead to playoffs. Instead, it's going to be more of what Jim Benning said in his earlier press conference availability when he said, we're probably 2 years away from competing with elite teams, which would put this organization at 9 years before they can compete with elite teams, which is just fucking pathetic, frankly. For a management group that started out by saying we're going to turn things around in a hurry and basically failed at trying to turn things around in a hurry and built a core through failure rather than intentional actions is so pathetic. And the fact that they're getting another kick at the can without even a head coach signed, without their goalie coach signed, assistant coaches signed, just trying to do it as cheaply as possible while also contending with having to build a farm team from scratch. Like, consumer confidence in the brand, in the organization is rock fucking bottom. And to see like this completely tone deaf maneuver of just thinking it's completely fine to bring Benning back blows my mind. I don't. You can, by all means, sir, rant away because I cannot invest more of my brain power into just how pathetic it is that a regime like this is still getting chances 8 years now to try and build a contender, never once learning from their mistakes and somehow holding the ear of the ownership group through this entire time. Like, I have made mistakes once or twice in my job, and if I make them a third time, I will never hear the fucking end of it. And I have to go out of my way to explain all the context necessary for why it's my fault and how it's going to be prevented next time. We're talking 7 years straight of cap mismanagement, poor drafting, poor development, poor free agent acquisitions, like off ice issues as well, like saying they praise character while shipping off Jared McCann, but then bringing in Brandon Prust and fucking re-signing Jake Virtanen to a 2-year deal despite not having earned it like whatsoever, blows my mind. I wish I could get away with making as many frequent similar mistakes as these guys do. And I'm not being trusted with a multi-million-dollar property. I'm being charged with like $50,000. You know what I mean? These guys have been entrusted with $1 billion franchise and have tanked its value into the hundreds of millions of dollars. They're the only organization in the last 14 or 12 years or something like that. I think I can't remember his name. It's someone on Twitter, I think it's Lord Humongous or whatever, had a thread that was basically like, in the last 7 years or 8 years or whatever, every single NHL franchise value has gone up except the Vancouver Canucks, who's decreased. That is unbelievable.
Again, friendly reminder that in that 7 years, the Coyotes almost moved, the Hurricanes almost moved, and the Panthers almost moved. And when I say almost, yeah, I mean like in the sense of if they had been sold, if they had speculative, and also if they had been sold, if they couldn't find a local buyer, they were almost guaranteed gone. Like they were gone.
They had the Marullo show up out of nowhere in the 11th hour.
Like the Coyote
by the team.
He's been the 6th or 7th owner in that timeline. And like now they're still worth more than the Coyotes, but the Coyotes' value has risen in that amount of time where they have gone through bankruptcies, arena deals being just decimated,
and still being a shit team.
And still being not good, and still not selling any damn tickets. But the Canucks are the only team left. That hasn't made the money. Look.
Unreal.
Like, it is unreal. Like, okay. It's stunning. It is both stunning and completely not at all stunning whatsoever that we're getting another year of Jim Benning. Like,
yeah,
we should have expected it because you know what? This is what the Canucks do.
This
is the history of this team is wrong decisions at the worst possible time. We've already said it. And then you throw in the fact of an ownership group that, again, I've said before and relatively recently that I think when you come as close as they did to winning a Stanley Cup, I think, or any sports championship as an owner, as like a serious owner, I think that drives you a little mad. Like, not in and I mean that figuratively, obviously. I think it drives you a little bit crazy that you got so close. And all you can think about is, how do I get that back? How do I personally make that happen? And the way that this ownership group has reacted to that situation is, oh, I'm going to get really involved with everything going on with the team to I'll say, toxic degree, and start hamstringing them on decisions and making choices myself as if I know what I'm doing as a hockey person.
Yeah.
Again, and hey, like, I don't know what, like, yeah, whatever your businesses are, like, I understand that owners get a say because they're paying billions of dollars for for a business. Like, and I'm not under this guise of like, oh, you know, like hockey and sports in general are above this idea of like business or sort of thing. Like, business is how we don't get games like this and we don't get events like this without it being a business. I understand that's a thing. I'm not like, I don't think it's some rare pure thing. But as an owner of a business and someone who's become successful and made a lot more money from the successes of their own businesses outside of hockey, you'd think they'd have figured out by now that the only way to become successful at what you do is to listen to the people you hire. Or when they don't do a good job, you replace them with somebody who will do better. You don't just go, this is fine, they'll turn it around, or worse, get involved and start making your own calls on how to do things, even though, again, you have never run a hockey team in your entire life. You may pay the bills, you've never run a team. Have you ran your kid's minor hockey team ever? Like, have you ever been the manager of like your kid's team? Probably not. Like, that would be at least somewhat helpful because you know how scheduling and working with people is and why it's important. You cannot be getting involved. And this ownership group has routinely made poor choices that have resulted in the environment that this team is in now, where you have players who might be asking for a trade. You have situations where somehow you are very gung-ho about what you want from your team and what you want from your players and the fans and what you expect from the fans and the media and everything. But then when the NHL comes to you and says, hey, we're going to make your team just got sick and we're going to make you play, you're going to make your players play a bunch of games in way too short an amount of time. They're like, whatever. Like, they just roll over for them. It's garbage. It's total garbage. It's total hypocritical garbage. And literally, this is like, Jim Benning, whatever you feel about him, is like, he's almost a sympathetic character in this case because of the fact that it's very clear that even though he is not a good general manager, there's not a whole lot he can do. Like, well, he says
a
he
huge
wants
yes
Travis,
man, right? Like that's the issue. Like he's constrained by the fact that he is a yes man, and Francesco Aquilini and the family are basically like, we spent a shit ton of money to, ascend to the top during 2011. We invested in sleep science, we invested in mind rooms, we invested in pretty much everything imaginable, and we lost. Right. And you guys beat us. Jim Benning, you and your Boston Bruins beat us. So we want you to do what you did with Boston on a cheaper budget and win us a cup. And it hasn't happened in 7 fucking years.
Not only has it not happened, they're not even a contender. They're not even a regular playoff team. They're a mess. They can't, for every single time that it's like, oh, but Jim Benning's great at drafting players and development. Have you looked at the Utica Comets cupboard recently? It's bare.
Yes,
there's nothing there. There's nothing left.
And I am not looking forward to writing my season recap and being like, oh, by the way, guys, there is nothing coming.
No. There are no, outside of who's already, of the high draft picks like Vasily Podkolzin, there's no one coming. There is no one else coming.
There might be Jet Wu coming, maybe in 3 years, but he wasn't that great, and he wasn't that good.
And that's one guy in 3 years where you've had where you have potentially 7 draft picks, and that's all you have to show for it in 7 years is okay. You have the first, people can go, oh, but Pettersson, he drafted Pettersson and Hughes and stuff. Those are the gimmies. Every
Those are the bare
GM is
minimum
expected
jobs.
to. That is the bare minimum, low bar to clear, is to get somebody who jumps into your lineup and makes an impact. And they failed on that twice with Virtanen and Olli-Juolevi.
Yeah.
Like, unreal. Like, Matthew Tkachuk scored a goal today. They could have had Matthew Tkachuk.
He almost got a hat
Like,
trick.
he almost got a hat trick in a game where Olli-Juolevi was healthy scratched.
Oh,
because-
we didn't even talk about this. I think in our last episode, because I think the game happened after. But he played him like we can segue a bit here. Olli-Juolevi played himself out of the NHL the other day. He cannot skate,
yeah.
and I listen to the radio or whatever, like in the mornings and like when I'm driving home from work, and so you get like the fan calls into the radio station to talk about like what they think about the team. I heard someone say that Juolevi's still a kid and just needs more time to develop. And I don't usually like yell at the radio because like I am, I don't want to be that old yet. Like I'm very old, but like I don't want to be like yelling at the radio or yelling at the sky yet. I'm not Mark Edge. And so I heard him say like he just needs more time to develop, and I'm like yelling at my radio at a stoplight going, what the fuck play are you watching? He can't fucking skate. He can't pivot. You know who beat him on the outside? Yes, the games are meaningless. It was fucking Josh Levo, who had knee reconstruction surgery. And fucking Milan Lucic. Like, he can't beat those two while defending at the NHL level, and you're like, give him more time? Guess what? People slow down as they get older. They don't get faster. He's 23 years old. He's not going to just suddenly be like, oh, I can skate now. I know what to do. Anyone who watched that pivot against Levo or Lucic knows he is not an NHL defenseman. Nolan Baumgartner didn't trust him all year. And then the 1 year where they needed to play him, he got completely tuned by guys that cannot skate at the NHL level. And that happened multiple times this year. So stop, people. Anyone listening to this who has friends that say, oh, Juolevi's going to come up next year and replace Edler. No, you stop them dead in your tracks and you say he cannot skate. He will be a fine AHL player, but he is on the expiry of his ELC. And honestly, for my money's worth, I wouldn't even bother extending him. There's no point.
He would have been an NHL defenseman in the 90s or the 2000s. And that's not necessarily and that's not meant to be a dig at him. I'm talking about, okay, I know you do. But for me, when I say that, I literally mean the fact that the game has just gotten so much faster in the last few years that if you're not quick enough on your feet, like Juolevi is, you cannot you won't last.
Or physical. That's the thing too. Right? Because
before in like the earlier years, in like the earlier decades, the game was a little slower, it's a little bit bigger and a little bit grinded out sort of game. They've gotten away from that as much, especially in the post-lockout era. But like even now, it's increased since like basically since McDavid came into the league. It really just went up a notch of speed is your number one concern. So he could have done okay in those eras. But now it's just not. You just can't. It's just not a. You can't get away with being that slow. And yes, you can teach people to be a little faster, but not enough. Not enough to actually make that big a difference. Like you can you can teach someone technique to say like take a few seconds off their mile time, but you can't teach them to cut it
fundamentally you can't change. You can't just teach someone to fundamentally alter the way that they generate speed or momentum in their stride. Some people can, but it's not at 22.
And it's a genetics thing too. Like some people just like heavier. Like if you're a tall, huge guy, you're just going to be slower because you're bigger and you're carrying a bigger body weight around. Like that's just how it is. Like, and with Juolevi, he's clearly his body just cannot go that extra pen, so it's not there for him, and he will he could. I think he could maybe be a seventh defenseman for the team, but that's it. Like I wouldn't. He would very much be an Oscar Fantenberg more than a and Alex Edler.
At this point, for me,
we've
like,
gone a little bit off the topic, but still.
yeah, no, I heard that on the radio earlier today. Oh, Colorado just scored 35 seconds into the first period. Baby.
Carolina just won. Carolina won a game. Again, so many good playoff things to talk about. I think Boston won tonight, I guess, as well. But
yeah,
so many good things.
Anyway, just to wrap up the Yule Levy talk, he could be a 7th D, but he doesn't play physical enough to be a 7th D. Like, he gets pushed around because he's not a strong guy. And for my money's worth, like, if anything, it would be like a Jalen Chatfield, because like he skates hard, he's way faster than Yule Levy. His positioning sucks and his offense sucks, but like you're at least getting like mileage out of him. Whereas Yule Levy, you have to like painstakingly like shelter him with minutes and basically hope he gets like a good breakout pass. But otherwise, what are you getting? Are you winning with him on the ice? And the answer most of the times is no. The answer is like maybe with Chatfield, but like you're not getting any offense. But like, you didn't get offense with Oscar Fantenberg when he was in the lineup, and Oscar Fantenberg was kind of useful. I don't think Yule Levy's useful, and like it sucks to say that because he's a fifth
overall pick. You hedged a lot.
Yeah,
of
he's
him.
taken high. He had good like upside at the time because like he was an okay skater with good like offensive IQ. But when you rattle off, multiple knee reconstructions and like lower back surgeries after putting on a bunch of weight and muscle, like that's nearly impossible to overcome as any player, let alone someone who's like in their awkward stage of development as like physically developing. Like that's tough to overcome. Sucks for him. It sucks for the Canucks. It sucks for Jim Benning because they were really fucking high on Yule Levy being that Edler replacement. And now we're on the eve of an offseason where the Canucks are still going to have to decide if they want to bring Edler back, even though he's arguably slower than Yule Levy, which is saying something.
Yeah, and just this year was like, I guess I never really fully finished what I was talking about with ownership and management and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the environment that they have created around this team in this year, like, transcends just abysmal, like, it just, any abysmal things that we've seen from this franchise before. Like, you know what? Like, because again, look, we just spent an extra like 5 minutes talking about Yule Levy, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, on ice stuff is kind of secondary to how are you at actually like running to like being a people like actually like running a group
actually
of people
caring for your group of people and players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Because that's obviously been the biggest issue for them this season, where it was like in the offseason, all of the the offseason losses, like Stetcher, Toffoli, coming out and saying, oh, we're going to try and get something done with these guys. And then it comes out after the fact that they didn't even call
them a contract.
Chris Tanev, guy who's been here for 10 years, didn't even call him.
Yeah.
Like that adds up.
Yeah, you didn't call, like, and Sean Mathias was on Pucks on Net talking about the same thing, like how he just didn't even get a call. Like, they didn't talk to him, but they said they did, and that's literally, there are so many things with the way this organization is run nowadays where it's stunning just how it's not even about the fact that they're bad at their job so much as it's the fact that they are bad at being like seemingly bad at being good people, like in terms of actually caring for their employees.
Yes.
Like totally being willing to let the NHL take their players and run them into the ground after a COVID outbreak instead of standing up for them. JT Miller had to do that for them. Had to go into the media and publicly say, "Hey, this is bullshit," basically. Yeah. For them to do it, and they didn't actually do anything. The league ended up having to step in to like actually be like, okay, we'll give you some extra time, sort of thing, right? If he doesn't do that, they're forced to play because the management is like, oh, this is great, like they're ready to go and everything. No, they weren't. You were not paying attention. There's been very little, like Ian McIntyre was talking about how this has been the worst communication the team has had ever with people. Like they're not communicating, which you cannot do, which you cannot have issues with. It's just like you go down the list of all of the things that they have done in terms of actually like just doing a terrible job and treating the players like they don't matter, like they're just like they're commodities. Like the trading away all the like letting all those free agents go. I understand that it's a business, but there's a huge difference between not being able to re-sign players because of cap things and just not calling them or looking at some new shiny thing like Oliver Ekman-Larsson and deciding that's how you want to devote your time. Or, even
Michael
worse,
Ferland.
doing all those things and then lying about it. And then publicly lying about it to people. Saying, we ran out of time. You didn't call them. That's not running out of time.
Yeah.
That's not giving a shit. Like, that's a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
And we've seen that from them this year. Like, refusal to admit when they're wrong. Like, it's someone else's fault every single time. Benning
it's
had
never
the one
there.
press conference.
It's never theirs.
It's never Jim Benning's fault. When you ask him, it's always somebody else's. I cannot wait for tomorrow or the next day when I find out when he comes to me. It's like, oh, it's injuries, it's COVID. No, it's you built a terrible team. You built a bad team that had one really major injury to Elias Pettersson, sure. But overall, your team stayed relatively healthy. You were already out of it before he was out. He was out of the lineup. You surrounded them with crap. And now you're going to get another look at it. You're going to get another year, which, frankly, is actually not true. He's not going to get a year. He will be gone.
No, he'll be canned after the first losing streak of next year.
He'll be gone in month 1. Yeah. Because literally, let's be honest, everybody who goes to those games for the first months is going to be just yelling fire Benning the entire game. Like,
especially when they need to rebuild their team with less than $15 million in cap space.
Which is
like good fucking luck.
And they only have themselves to blame for that because
but it won't be their fault. It'll be the flat cap because of COVID. It's that fault. It's COVID's fault. It's not theirs. They're the only team affected by COVID. Like, it's the same excuses that were in that earlier press conference where it's all these things that affect every NHL team,
same thing,
but somehow it's the only issue affecting them. It'll be depth. It'll be, the kids didn't take the steps we were hoping to see from them, which is bullshit because the only kids that really stepped in the lineup were Rathbone and Hoglander, and they were your best players at times. Yeah. Like, the only excuse, like, if he came out in these, the final media availabilities of the year and he was like, you know what? We made some bad calls. We invested a lot of money in players we thought were going to make the difference for us, and it was the wrong calls. That's on me as a GM to identify which players are going to take the next step. And unfortunately, I made the wrong calls. Maybe he saves face a bit, but this is an organization, like you said, that has a track record now, a history of treating players like shit after they leave the organization or
kicking them on their way out the door.
So,
mind-boggling.
Let's go back. One of the first ones that at least I can remember. I know there's more before this, but this is the one that kind of set off the alarm bells for me a while ago, which was the team signed Sam Gagner from the Columbus Blue Jackets to his 3-year, $3 million contract. He played one season, and then the team immediately soured on him because he wasn't producing like he did in Columbus. Everyone at the time knew he was producing in Columbus because he played a very niche role as a fourth line grinder with power play time because he was a power play specialist who could produce in very specific situations. The team didn't deploy him like that. They deployed him like a shutdown center. He was very bad at it. And in the following offseason, they said, we are sending you down to the AHL, but because we respect you, we're going to send you to the Toronto Marlies to be a mentor to their farm team instead of our own. So there's two issues here. One, they couldn't just man up and send them to their own farm team and mentor the Canucks prospects, which would have been actually valuable because in 2018-19, the Canucks had 0 center prospects. They were awful at center in 2018-19 and were one of the worst AHL teams in the entire league. They were absolute dog shit. They could have used a Sam Gagner to help that out a bit. And then after that, they have a player like Sven Berchi, who has a pretty decent season, overcomes a concussion, gets signed to a 3-year, $2667 million contract. He plays a good season, still more concussion issues. Then he has post-concussion symptoms in the next season. And what do? They send him to the minors and they say, you're no good. You're no longer an NHL player. We can't trade you because your contract sucks. We put you on unconditional waivers. Nobody wanted you. You're a dead asset to us. Good luck. What do? At the same time, they signed Michael Furlan to a fucking 4-year deal. Like 3 months, not even like a few months after he goes on this giant rant in the Carolina media saying, I'm very concerned about my health. Because of concussions, yeah, I have to think about the long-term health of my career. And they signed him to an extra year that no one else was going to give him, to an extra couple $1 million that no one else wanted to sign for him or sign him to. And sure enough, he has concussion issues in the first season. He's just as useless and as ineffective to the Canucks lineup as Sven Berchi is. But now they've burnt the bridge and basically killed any kind of relationship they have with like free agents in the market, because they know if you have a bad season, they're going to can you to the minors instantly and replace you with the exact same player who they think is going to replace what you were supposed to bring for the exact same dollar term.
And they're not going to buy you out, even though that would be a smarter thing to do, because not only would you cut them off your books, they would also be, hey, free to go sign somewhere else that will give them an opportunity.
But no, they let these things fester.
We're gonna destroy we're gonna end your NHL career right now. Like
especially with the Berchi thing too. Like because of like the way they ended it, like you said, like they're going to bury his career because it wasn't so much that they put him on unconditional waivers. They then do media and say, we tried to get rid of him for free and nobody wanted him. They had no reason to, but they put him on. They just bury the guy and piss on his grave. They did that for every guy basically.
Jim Benning is I'll say for Jim Benning, oh my god. Well, actually, I can't even say that because he lies all the time. Whenever he decides to say the truth, it is just the worst thing you could do. And again, we talked about this during the trade deadline, where I am very convinced at this point that he routinely talks himself out of returns to play to other teams because he'll just be like, "Oh, this player's here. Can you just get rid of this guy for us?" sort of thing, or he'll be like, "Well, he's not that he'll talk himself out of deals by just being too honest with the other teams."
Or he's like, "I wouldn't give this up for that player." And so he convinces himself he needs to pay, like the Eric Goodbranson deal, for example. Like, why was he giving up a 4th round pick? He had no reason to give up an extra pick. A player, a 2nd rounder, and a 4th for just a goon and a 5th round pick in return. He's just talking himself into these deals.
And Eric Goodbranson was another player, much like Sam Gagner, where if you actually put him in a position that to play a style of play that he's more comfortable with, he might have done, maybe he wouldn't have done super well because he's not that great a defenseman, but he's not that good. But they also completely didn't help by deciding that he's going to be the gritty stay-at-home defenseman, even though that was not his thing. He was a scoring defenseman in Florida. That was his whole thing.
And he could barely do it.
Yeah, that he got points for the Panthers. And he clearly liked being an offensive defenseman rather than the back. Even though he wasn't really that good
at it.
Tyler Myers is even though he wasn't that good at it, but it's another case of a guy of taking a player who is and trying to completely turn them into something they're not.
Yeah.
Tyler Myers is the same thing.
Nikita Trampkin.
Nikita Trampkin. They showed him videos of Sedino Chara because he's tall. Even though that's never what he was. Even though the style of play that Sedino Chara is never what Nikita Trampkin played.
Yeah. Play like that's stronger.
We didn't even talk about Trampkin's contract, I think, once on this show this year.
We don't. That's good. I don't ever want to talk about Trampkin.
Fair enough. But like
the player communication is so
the player communication is bad.
And now the coaching.
They constantly like favor other players from other teams over and value them over their own players.
Yes.
Which is completely awful management.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the coaches. Now, supposedly the coaching thing supposedly Jim Benning wants Travis Green to come back and wants the coaches to come back. Supposedly.
I don't buy it.
Either way, I don't know whether to buy it either. But at the same time, it's like, again, this is another case of ownership. Like, why? Like, Travis Green did as much with this roster as he could. And he has for the last 4 years that he's been here. Is it 4 or 3? He's been here a while. He's been here for a while now.
He's been here for at least, I think this is fourth season this year.
This was year 4. But he's been here a while, and he's done what he's clearly gotten the team to get better. The team has clearly done better than it expected under him. I think had they made the playoffs as normal last year, he would have been a candidate for coach of the year. I don't know why I'm blanking on the
Jack Adams
trophy right now. Thank you.
Jack Adams.
The Jack Adams. He would have been a Jack Adams candidate last season had the team made the playoffs and the pandemic not gotten in the way.
Right. If they got there, if the pandemic hadn't gotten in the way, there's a very reasonable argument you can make that they weren't going to make it with the way they were playing in the final stretch.
Sure. But that's also fair. But at the same time, like, he did the best he could he's done the very, very best he could with those groups. Like, that playoff, they don't go to Game 7 against the Golden Knights. They don't make it through the Wild and the Blues without great coaching from Travis Green. Sometimes you don't see great coaching. Like, there are some teams that can kind of coach themselves a little bit, if you know what I mean. Like, I would say Boston and, like, Bruce Cassidy are a really good example of that, where, like, Bruce Cassidy is a decent coach, but he's, like, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. I doubt he has to do a whole lot of, like, adjustments on the fly sort of thing, because they're a team that's built a culture, that's built a pretty good locker room, and they're kind of a self-sustaining group, right? Colorado, kind of the same thing. I think you could put a lot of teams in that. There's a lot of teams at the top that are routinely at the top that I think you could put in that group. I think Pittsburgh's another one. Washington. No, Washington's a little different, but you know what? Sorry.
Washington's a bit different, but like Pittsburgh for sure, it's like an issue like where it's like, okay, they got like a core of group that know what they're supposed to do. So you can trust them to know that what system the coach wants them to deploy.
And you know that when the new players come in, that the core is going to help them adjust and is going to
buy in,
and help them buy in. Yes, exactly.
Yes. And that's what Travis Green's basically done the last 4 years, though, is he's basically created, like, say what you will about, like, like how aggressive they are, and maybe how defensively porous they are at times, and you can obviously chalk that up to like the fact that maybe the players that Jim Benning's acquired just aren't that good to begin with to be playing the types of systems that Travis Green wants to employ with his group, but they buy in. They bought in against that Vegas series, and they broke their brains, and it looks to be carrying over into this playoff series against the Minnesota Wild, which is super interesting. Right. But
hell yeah.
But I to touch base on like the whole lame duck coach thing, do you remember last season, before the JT Miller trade, last season, when he was heading into the draft in Vancouver, and everyone was like, oh, it's kind of cruel to have Jim Benning running this draft as a lame duck GM. What happens? He makes the JT Miller trade, and then Francesco, basically, they announce, oh, he's been signed to Jim Benning's been re-signed to a 2-year, 3-year deal. So he knows, the ownership knows as well, that being a lame duck person in management, in coaching, is a dog shit feeling, dog shit position to be in if you're one of those people. here they are, less than a year and a half later. This coach that has basically made chicken salad out of chicken shit year after year gets them to playoffs, nearly gets them to the Western Conference Finals, is a lame duck season in one of the worst years imaginable, not even in terms of on ice performance, but just what they had to go through as a team. The COVID outbreaks, the shakeups to the core, thanks to ownership's, reluctance to spend money or allow buyouts that would allow them to improve their team or retain the core that made them a contender in the playoffs. To let that guy basically sit in front of the media, answer all of their questions about Jake Virtanen, about the COVID outbreak, scheduling, about being a lame duck coach every single night, when just 2 years ago Jim Benning was in the exact same position, having sympathy poured on him for being a lame duck GM. That is pure cowardice from both Jim, John Weisbrod, and Francesco Aquilini. And here they are. It's not even just Travis Green. You have Ian Clark. One of the reasons that Thatcher Demko is basically, he's praising him in the media in the final game availability, saying, please, desperate to bring this guy back. I'll let you go in on this because I know you're the goalie.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you. This is my time to shine right here, because look, this is also a friend of the show, David Quadrelli's time to shine, because he's also a big goalie guy, and he did an article in Canucks Army basically talking about why a great piece on how they need to re-sign Ian, on why it's so important that they re-sign Ian Clark. And Thatcher Demko, again, this is rare in the NHL. You don't see this a lot, where literally the goalie, again, a goalie who just signed a 5-year contract extension with the team, is literally publicly begging for them to re-sign Ian Clark and bring him back and try and bring him back. This is the quote. This is quotes from Daniel Wagner's piece about it. And Vancouver is awesome. This is the full quote. Clarky is unbelievable. I owe probably just about everything to him. Obviously, I'm putting in the work, but the way he's guided me and mentored me, it's been amazing. I desperately hope that they can figure something out and have him return. And there was an Ian McIntyre version that said, I hope that they can figure something out and have him return. Thatcher Demko's mom on Twitter, Danielle Demko, she quote tweeted as like, you forgot to add desperately once that. And yes, and shout out to goalie moms everywhere, because that is that's such goalie mom energy. Like I saw so much of my own mom in that when I was playing in like minor hockey and everything. That was very much my mom's energy, always trying to get me goalie coaches for teams that were just not interested in finding one for anybody, because they just think the goalies are fine and will do what they can.
Right.
But oh my god, like if he's not already out the door now, what the hell are you doing? Like, how have you not given these coaches a job? Like, you're out here again, like investing money in all of these other things, and like it's very clear that the ownership group is spending money in other places. And but when it comes to coaches, purse. I need to tighten the purse strings here a little bit, because Lord knows that a well-coached team doesn't make you money. Definitely not. Like that. No, certainly not. That's the thing that baffles me about all of this. At the end of the day, is the fact of I get it's a pandemic. I get that money is tighter now than usual. I get that you are not bringing in income from fans buying tickets and buying a lot of souvenirs and all of the other things that come with a regular NHL season. But you know what helps bring you, pays the bills later on? Winning.
Having a good team.
A good foundation with great players and a well-built roster that wins a bunch of hockey games.
Yeah. Weird, right?
Weird how that works. It's amazing. And if you don't, and if that's not what you want to do, if you're not willing to actually spend the money to create a winner, then stop telling me that you do. Then stop telling me that you want to win a championship, because clearly you don't. Clearly you don't want to win a cup. Yeah. And I've said it before, as long as Jim Benning is in charge of this team, as long as I think as long as Jim Benning is the GM of the Vancouver Canucks, mark my words, they will never win a Stanley Cup. Never.
No.
They will never. They will fully waste the prime years of Elias Pettersson, of Brock Besser, of Bo Horvat, who, by the way, has already played 500 games and is going to be 27 next season.
God.
Don't forget about that.
Is he really 27?
I believe he's going to be 27 next year. That is, unless I am mistaken.
Oh my God, he is. That is.
Yep. He's played
ridiculous.
500 NHL games. He is halfway to 1,000.
Goddamn.
Quinn Hughes, same diff. Vasily Podkolzin hasn't played an NHL game yet, but he's not touching a cup if Benning's here for the full years of his prime. You will never win with that. You will never win with him around. Plain and simple. It is.
Yeah.
You will never win with him. You will never win without a president in charge of the team, because that's where a whole lack of communication comes in. Again, like, we could be spending like hours on this because of the fact that literally there is so much top to bottom errors and mistakes and just clearly like bad, awful, poorly run hockey team that frankly refuses to listen to anyone else. Like this problem has clearly come from people who think that only they know best and that refuses to listen to anyone but themselves. That is Jim Benning's MO. That's John Weisbrod's MO. That's the Aquilini's MO. They don't listen to anyone else, including their paying customers, and they don't listen to people like Trevor Linden, who say maybe you should maybe we should be patient here instead of trying to win
Let's not try to accelerate this thing.
And then they can him. Not that I think necessarily he was going to be the difference maker anyways.
No.
But I'm saying that the second somebody disagrees with you, you kick them out the door is never gets you anywhere.
Well,
never.
why don't we talk about the solution that the ownership group has basically attempted to placate the fan base as if it would somehow, I don't know, solve any of their problems when it comes to the issues that you're addressing, which include the fact that anyone who basically voices a differing opinion to a small group of managers is going to be the odd man out. It's why Jim Benning has got his way with Aquilini, because he says yes to Aquilini, and the only other person that in that management group who has a say is his best buddy, John Weisbrod, who's just going to agree with everything that Jim wants. Therefore, they carry the majority on most all decisions. Trevor Linden realized this, and when he tried to, do something about it and delay the rush back to contention, they canned him. So what's the solution for the Aquilinis now that, people are starting to wise up to the way they run things? They're going to hire the Sedins. They have zero experience in hockey operations, but the rumor was floated out by Darren Dreger, and it's pretty much confirmed now that ownership is in talks with the Sedins to basically come in some kind of senior advisor capacity, possibly in an operations role. They're not too clear about that. But the idea is that the Sedins would sit in on the exit interviews and would work alongside Jim Benning, because they obviously played for Jim Benning. They saw how the team functioned for 4 of their 7 years as GMs. Gut reaction to this was senior advisors, whatever, sure. But hiring them as a save face maneuver is just more cowardice from a management and ownership group that have shown nothing but cowardice the past 7 years. Why do they keep doing this?
Aquilini in years. When was the last time you heard him in an actual interview?
I think it was literally when they hired Linden. That's it.
Eugene Melnick may suck as an owner for the Senators, but at least he shows up on the radio every now and then to say silly things.
Yes.
I'll take that over, or shows up on a cruise. We don't even have time to get into that whole fiasco today. But at least you hear from Eugene Melnick every now and then, even if it is just to say the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Literally, Aquilini has gone AWOL aside from the occasional tweet for the last 7 years. You
Still won't
never
even
hear
answer
from
my
me.
questions. I just want a goddamn chicken parm recipe, and this motherfucker keeps leaving me on red. It's very disappointing and
Absolutely.
weird, frankly.
And the whole and I will and again we go back to the whole poor management thing.
Yeah.
I think it's I just want to say I think it's very hilarious that supposedly the organization wants the Sedins to work alongside a guy who routinely used them as scapegoats for why the team didn't rebuild faster.
Yes,
Routinely said
it's
we were trying to win with the Sedins. No, like
no, you weren't.
so you're
Or you
blaming.
were,
So in
but it
other
was a
words,
bad job.
So it's their fault that
Yeah.
you started a rebuild late.
Yeah.
That's that. And
That
now
press
you want
conference
and now they
happened,
want to
what,
work
last year,
Not,
where they
yeah,
were
not
like,
that long ago.
they're like, we wanted to rebuild, but those damn pesky Sedin contracts ruined everything. Those damn meddling Sedins and their pesky $7 million
Literally.
contracts.
Yeah, let's make the Sedins. Yeah, again, let's make
Yeah.
the Sedins work with less power to a person who routinely
Blame
used
them.
them as basically blame
Literally
them
blame them. Like okay,
for
so
why they weren't farther ahead in a rebuild. Like
let me
mind-boggling. Like,
let me roll it back a bit. The fact that Jim Benning survived blaming two of the most beloved franchise players of all time and their contracts that were completely deserved for the reasons why he couldn't ice a better hockey team should have been fireable. He should have been fired on the spot. And the fact that the fan base did nothing, didn't even voice a word, blows my mind, because I remember seeing that and being like, are you kidding me? Anyways, complete aside, the Sedin Benning marriage is going to be a disaster. I don't think they're going to get anything out of this. At least I respect Jeff Courtnall for basically saying, I mean, I don't respect Jeff Courtnall, but I respect him for being like, yeah, I don't have any hockey experience, but hey, I'd love to have a six-figure career as a senior advisor for the Canucks.
Yeah, he said he could do special advising. He would do special advisor role stuff, but like
so can I.
He wouldn't do. But he said he wasn't qualified for like GM president work. Which
yeah,
hey, good for.
But it's very funny
for publicly knowing that for publicly saying that.
Yeah,
that's a good
it's
thing
awesome
that
because
that.
It's like whenever like a job post gets posted on Twitter and it's like something like outrageous, like you need 20 years of experience, and people like say they apply. And it's like the same thing where it's like Jeff Courtnall's like, yeah, I'm not experienced, but I would love to make 6 figures to tell people that this is bad, this is good, this is also bad. Like any person, me and you should apply for the same job Courtnall's applying for, because it sounds like a killer gig.
Well, see, we can't because we're not former Canucks.
That's true. We're not from the 94
That's
Canucks.
the one prerequisite of this is you have to be a former Vancouver Canuck of some era. And that's the whole thing. That's the proof is in the pudding. They don't want what they're doing here. If like as much as I love the Sedins and as much as you like former 94 players and 2011 guys and what have you, like they're talking about this like player council thing or whatever of people.
Yeah.
That is very clearly that is PR crap, PR way of saying we don't care, we don't want to fix anything. There's nothing here actually worth our time to fix, which is crazy because literally there is so much wrong with your team right now on so many levels that you're probably going to lose players who never want to come back to your organization again, and you are going to not get any better for it. This is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. You need to hire an actual president, someone with actual hockey ops experience, to be the proper buffer between ownership and the general manager, and be the person who sometimes says, all right, we need to let the GM go because they're not good at their job. This is what they need. They don't have that right now. They have Jim Benning doing the work of both and not doing either of them well. And hiring the Sedins to be a special advisor is not going to fix that. It's not going to help anything because because that's the thing, right? You can advise as much as you like. doesn't mean they're going to listen to you. They could just they could flat out ignore them.
Yeah.
Jim Benning and John Weisbrod very easily could just ignore whatever Daniel and Henrik tell them. And
you know who was advising over the last few seasons? Trevor Linden, Judd Brackett, Lawrence Gilman, Lauren Hennig, all of them gone. All progressive,
gone.
forward-thinking people that are responsible for the team having as much success as they've had over the last 10 years. And they were all gone because Jim Benning has a way that he wants to run a team. John Weisbrod agrees with him. So a player council, I mean, great. You could have 50 players, former players, sitting in a circle and being like, hey, Jim, this is a stupid idea. But he still has the final say. So it doesn't fucking matter. Sedins can be like, oh, hey, you know what we didn't like was you signing a bottom four center to a 4-year, $5.875 million contract with a retroactive no move clause, and he couldn't skate. That was bad. Don't do that again. You'd be like, I need my foundation. I need my foundation. Yeah. God damn it. But anyways, so that brings us to like the next section, which is like Benning adjacent, which is how do they make this worse? Because we know that the cap situation, they have to sign Pettersson, Hughes. We're not going to get into those contracts because it's just going to take too long. But on top of that, they're going to have...
There'll be more time.
Yeah, exactly. We'll probably get into that more after the expansion draft, and the Canucks lineup is a bit more cemented. But the Canucks have like a bunch of issues ahead of themselves where, I mean, we looked at the Sea of Granlund over this past season, and I think Jeff Patterson had his tweet where he was like, the VC, where he was like, over the past 5 games or 10 games or whatever it is, like the bottom 6 combined for like 2 shots on goal. Like it was something pathetic. So it's like, here's the list: Jay Beagle 5 points, Jace Howerluck 5 points, Matthew Highmore 5 points, Jake Virtanen 5 points, Antoine.
You don't need to go through the whole list, but yes, we get the idea.
Basically, the idea is all of these players that have made their debuts in this season have not produced in the slightest over a long stretch of period. Travis Boyd has 2 points in 19 games. Jimmy Vesey has 3 assists in 20. Like, they need to, we've always said, like, they need to overhaul their bottom 6. They need to get faster, younger, more dynamic offensively. There's rumors out there that Jay Beagle might not return because of a injury concern. Brandon Sutter's a UFA. There's no telling what they're going to do with him. People say they might bring him back, which is like laughable at my opinion. Like, sure, do it, whatever, but it'll just be very funny that after a season like this, their solutions to everything is just go back to what they know instead of try something different and better. Will Lockwood, for my money's worth, I think he might have secured himself a roster spot. He got some pretty good minutes in his only 2 games. I think he looked good. I think if he gets on a line that isn't Travis Boyd and Jimmy Vesey, but like an actual bottom 6 line, I think he can actually do something valuable for the team.
I thought today was his first NHL game. I thought Will Lockwood's first game was today.
It was a second game. He debuted on yesterday's game. And he looked fine. He skated his wheels off.
My bad.
He picked up like 2 minutes of penalty. Hey, who cares?
It
really doesn't matter. Like Jonah Gadjevich, he played 1 game. He got in a fight, and I have to do the math or like the research into this, but I swear to God, there is a history of Canucks prospects making their debut, getting into a fight, and then Travis Green benching them for the rest of the game. And I think he did it with Zach McEwen. He did it with Gadjevich, and then Gadjevich, for whatever reason, didn't get in either of the final 2 games of the year. I have no idea why. He was completely fine.
I mean, maybe it's just him trying to tell them, hey, young rookie, please don't get your brain smashed in on the first game.
Possibly.
Like, and that's just
doing them a favor.
Like overly over. Yeah, he's doing them a favor. I guess out of like on this team, we're like in terms of the guys who I would consider bringing back. Tyler Graovac's a guy who I think in the last few games actually showed some wheels. He showed that he has some potential value.
Well,
I wouldn't mind
relative
seeing
wheels.
it.
He's very, very slow, admittedly.
Yeah, admittedly, but I think for like
I want him back purely for his intermission interviews because he is so chipper and honest about his like NHL career. He's basically just like, "Hey, I'm here, living it, loving it every day. Now every day
we
is a
love it.
gift.
We love
There's
that.
no way like, hey, I'm the
All
slowest
aboard
guy.
all aboard the gravy boat. Let's go.
Dude, the gravy boat.
Like,
I'm down. I joked. I think to Wyatt Arndt, I was like, give me a fourth line of Daniel Henrik and Tyler Grayovac because
hell
the
yeah.
Sedins at their age right now are probably better than this laundry list of players who've provided nothing.
Yeah.
Like Mark Michaelis,
Yeah.
0 points, 15 games. I know he was like a
Oof.
NCAA signing and they thought like his speed would add something, but I could not tell
And-
you a single thing he did. The only thing I know
could
about
barely
Mark
pick him out of the
Michaelis,
lineup, yeah.
yeah, the only thing I know is that he wore number 56, and because he was a smaller guy, sometimes I would always think, wow, Niels Hoglander's playing a lot tonight, but it was just Mark Michaelis out there and not Niels Hoglander. So it was always very confusing to me.
Maybe
But,
it's
like-
good that you confused him with Hoglander? I don't know.
Yeah,
Is that a bright side, maybe?
Maybe that would confuse like Jim Betting. He's like, oh yeah, Mark Michaelis, like he scored a lot for us. He tried a couple Michigan goals and looked really good.
No.
And
That's
they're
like when I played. That's like
"Uh,
when I played in minor hockey, and two of us had the same jersey number, so I kept getting credited. Even though I was the goalie, I kept getting credited with goals that I didn't
Hell yeah.
score.
That's
It was
that
great.
rocks.
I was like, I'd go to the guy and I'd be like, "Bro, you didn't get me any goals tonight. What the hell? My stat line is suffering."
You're
Yeah,
killing
it was. I would so many score sheets with my name on the goal in the goals tally when I'm in
That
net, where
rocks.
I'm like on the bench and haven't played a minute. I guess yeah. So I look at Grayovac as a guy. I mean, VC's gone. I don't think VC's coming back.
Boyd's gone.
I don't think he's. And I'll say I don't think he would come back even if they offered him a contract. I don't.
No.
I'm saying I don't think they will, but I don't. I don't. Even if they did, I don't think he'd be interested.
He looked so checked out after like the first 5 games. I don't know what it was. Like he came in, he had like power play time and looked all right with Miller, and then I don't know what happened. Suddenly something clicked, and VC was just like, "Fuck all of this," and he looked completely checked out.
Well, he did get sick within like 2 games of him being there with COVID. So
sure, yeah,
that
but
I think like that might sour your experience on a team real quick.
Sure, like that would have been pretty tough. Like Travis Boyd, like he got picked up on waivers, and then he like waited 2 weeks to play, and then like when he was ready to come back, they went on the COVID
Immediately got
break.
sick.
But he looked
And
all right.
he-
Like, but I just don't think he's like he's just another Marcus Granlund, right? He's just not going to do
A
anything
little bit,
for
yeah.
you.
And like I think Jace Howerluck. I really like Jace Howerluck.
I
And
do too.
I joked. I made a joke about Drance talking too much about how elite Howerluck is
Elite.
on Twitter recently. Elite Jace Howerluck.
Yeah.
But no, I actually wouldn't mind him coming. If you put him on a fourth line he would make a decent player for the fourth line on lots of teams. Like he's not a huge liability in his own end. He's relatively consistent. He gets offensive results with very little ice time.
He forechecks well. He's got good speed.
Yeah,
I can see him bringing him back.
He's a decent bargain piece. Like he is the kind of guy that that cup teams look for to fill out that bottom pair who are cheap and can just do the role for a year or two.
Yeah. But yeah, if they could, the question is like, of course, can they re-sign some of these guys to sub-$1 million contracts? Because I think Howard looks like
after this mess of a year, like
yeah, like they don't have the dollars
back?
to spend, right? It's going to be like they're going to be looking like can William Lockwood be the Jace Howerluck replacement because we can't afford to bring back Jace Howerluck, right? Zach McEwen's got a second year on his deal. He really had an awful year, but you can't afford to bring back Travis Boyd or Tyler Grayovac. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of like the mindset they're in is like they have to make do with what they have. Like Matthew Highmore has a second year on his deal, so he's back guaranteed. Even though he's might not be as effective as Tyler Grayovac, but that second year like almost guarantees he's coming back.
And honestly, let's not kid ourselves here. Even if they did have the money to bring them back, like if
Yeah.
you're one of these guys who went through the hell that this year was, like every team dealt with some sort of adversity, either from COVID or what have you. The
Right.
Canucks dealt with it at clearly the worst possible degree, outside of maybe Buffalo. Well, actually,
Yeah.
even then, I would just say Buffalo suffered
Or
from
New
an
Jersey
on-ice
or something,
perspective.
too.
But they all just suffered from an on-ice perspective. The Canucks suffered from a clearly off-ice perspective, too, in so many ways, clearly with the players, and we talked about it. If you get the same offer from the Canucks, if you get like the same exact contract offer from another NHL team and the Canucks after the year that they had, are you going to take the Canucks contract if they're both offering the same amount of money in the same term? I would say no. I would say most players would say no. I think they would go somewhere else because they're like, no, you completely were willing to throw us to the wolves after we all got really, really sick. You were and didn't tell us about it. You didn't talk, and you kind of just hung us out to dry all year. Like, why on earth would I come back and play and re-sign with you?
Yeah, like the trust between like the players and like the management group, especially like if their coach is gone. Like, I mean, like I think Quinn Hughes and JT Miller are both like, yeah, Travis Green's been really great for our development. We've had like really good performances under him. Like, hopefully he can come back. Like, I don't know if I'm Jace Howrluck, and I saw this management group like run an operation that had the worst COVID outbreak in all of North American sports. Also ditches their head coach that everyone else respects and likes, and saw the core as well, like just disappear because of cheap ownership. I don't know if I'm really inkling to come back. You know, obviously with the flat cap, there's going to be a very limited amount of contracts being handed out in general. But I mean, yeah, like you raised a good point. Like, why would you want to subject yourself to like a year that might be another nightmare, anher repeat of an awful, awful year?
This is the other bad part about running a team poorly and doing such a bad job of it is that now in a year where you're already cap strapped, chances are players are not going to want to sign with you unless it's at a premium price. So because all the NHL has seen what's going on and probably knows more details than any of us do. Like every player in the league is probably far more in tune than any of us in the media are.
And all of these guys talk to each other too, right? Like they all play. They've all played with each other,
fast.
Right? Like they all get traded around, so they're all part of like group chats and whatever. Like the on ice, like they seem like heated and whatever. But at the end of the day, like half of these guys like go have dinner with each other at their houses, like before games and after games. You know what I mean? Like
Like
so they know.
We've already seen like people talking about like sources from other league teams saying how stunned or like shocked they are that Benning's coming back and everyone's coming back.
How pissed the players are. And how pissed the players are.
The players are pissed. Like this is lots of apparently players might request there might be trade requests this year. Yeah. Like we don't have any intel.
No,
the names
but
that are getting thrown out there are like
sources.
Nate Schmidt and JT Miller are being thrown out there. Whether or not that ends up, and again, they're under contract, so they could just end up going nowhere.
Yeah,
but they don't.
But the fact that the ideas are out there is like,
but it's that
it doesn't bode well.
It's that idea of like if any of your best players were UFAs this year, do you think they're coming back? Nope, definitely not. Like if Pettersson and Hughes were UFAs instead of RFAs, do you think they're coming back to the Canucks? I wouldn't. If I were them, I would not. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm like, nope. I will go. I will go literally to like Arizona or like the New York Islanders. Like in terms of like what is like the least favorable place to play in terms of where you're like where you'd want to. Like I will go anywhere else than come back here. But
Kyle Connor just scored an empty netter and made it 3-1 for Winnipeg.
Wait, what is it? Wait, pardon me? Oh my god.
3-1 Winnipeg game's like pretty much over.
Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
Edmonton. Again.
Mike Smith.
God, I'm so I'm so pissed that we have to talk about the Canucks all day today. I know it's our show. We don't have to, but we should because this is the day to do that.
Let's end with some
Let's end on a
positivity
good note.
because it's running a little long. Let's end with our year-end awards. We didn't even set any names, but we're just gonna rattle off a couple of random ones because they're funny. So for you, most exciting player, probably pretty simple. Who the choice is? Oh, they just scored another empty netter. Oh, Edmonton, what are you doing?
They're being the Edmonton Oilers. I cannot.
That's awesome.
I cannot believe they just. Oh, Edmonton.
Dude, that's
awesome.
My
God.
4-1. First game.
Literally, I was listening. Not to plug another show, but I was listening to Puck Soup today at work, and one of the things they were talking about is the hockey gods aren't going to let you have Matthews versus McDavid, are they? They're just not going to do that. And I was no, this is nah, this is the year where it's just impossible to avoid. It's just there's no amount of meddling the hockey gods could do to break that. Nope, never mind. 4-1 Winnipeg.
It's gonna be everyone was talking about McDavid versus Matthews, but no one ever thought to think that it was going to be Toffoli versus Scheifele.
Toffoli versus.
Could you imagine if Montreal beats Toronto? How amazing that would be. Okay, here's my pitch.
Funny. Yes. Let's do
year-end awards. We'll do a couple, and then we'll close it out. But most exciting player, Niels Höglander. There's no way it's anything else, right?
Yes, Niels Höglander.
Your boy.
He's
your boy now.
It's funny that I've become that he's my boy considering I'm the goalie guy, but that is true. Just because I wrote an article again. This got completely it did. It seemed to do very well in terms of engagement and everything, but it clearly fell a little under the radar once all the other Canucks news started coming out. But hey, my Botchford Project article came out about Niels Höglander through the eyes of his teammates and coaches, and I got to talk. And Höglander was the bright spot on the season for the player from the on ice perspective, and. That's not a dig at Brock Besser, who also had a very good year, and I could say arguably equally deserving. He had a great year, had to really kind of carry the team on his back offensively for a lot of the year because of Pettersson's injuries and everything. But Höglander came in, was not expected to be much right out of the gate. And immediately Travis Green throws him right on the second line with Horvat and Pearson, and he does great. Scores his first NHL goal in his first game. Unreal. He had an amazing year, and this was after already playing another 20 games with Rögle something in the Swedish Hockey League. So he had an amazing year. He went
and
above. No, he never slowed down. He went above and beyond the Call of Duty this season just because of the fact that he played through a pandemic. He moved to a new country in the middle of a pandemic. He had to get to know new teammates without actually being able to hang out with them really outside the rink.
Yeah.
Tanner Pearson was gave some very nice quotes when I asked him about Höglander season, because I did it again. It was from the teammates' perspective rather than Nils. And he talked about, he came in, he's a quiet guy. He's been a quiet guy because he's still learning English. He really came in and endeared himself to the room and everything, and how much he meant to the group, and just clearly taking advantage of the opportunities he's getting, and how different it was compared to Pearson's own experiences as a rookie when he was back in the 2013-14 when he was a King. Not just because of the fact that he ended up being on a Stanley Cup champion, but just because of the complete difference of being a rookie in the NHL in this particular season compared to literally any other year. And Travis Green had nothing but just kind words to say about him. He talked a little bit about what he's got to work on, but other than that, he was just the kid's done everything he could, and he's only gonna get better. And so true. Höglander, the sky really does seem like the limit for him based on just his work ethic and how much he very clearly believes in himself and to be that difference maker already at like such a young age.
Yeah.
He's a huge reason this season didn't completely go off the rails just because. And he was
one of the reasons why it was
favorite.
watchable.
Yeah, he became a fan favorite, like with the hope of the lacrosse goal of hoping like the hope of the lacrosse goal didn't happen this year, unfortunately.
Sad
but
days.
he got the umlaut discussion and how that became a big rallying cry for Canucks fans, even from the internet. And finally, he did end up getting it on his jersey, which was great. Like he was a huge part of this year, and as much as this year will be remembered for all the bad stuff, he deserves to have it remembered for his great rookie year too. He won't win the Calder, obviously. He probably won't get even a lot of votes this year, just because of the way
he'll probably get like a
divisions
fourth place vote or something, maybe a fifth.
He won't be he won't be one of the 3 finalists. I don't think, unfortunately. Although I think I think he's deserving of it. But he was fantastic this year, and I cannot wait to see what he does as he grows. Like, he's been great.
I agree. All right, let's rattle off some quick ones. Least exciting player, Mark Michaelis, guaranteed. Like as we just described, could barely even tell he was on the team.
Oh,
at times he thought he was Hoglander, and that's the most you can say. But you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Least exciting player, I guess I will go with I can't even I can't really pick anyone out of the lineup right now. I guess I'll go with I'll say
you'll
Louis
piggyback
Eriksson.
off of mine.
I'll say Louis Eriksson. $6 million didn't only crack the lineup for 7 games.
Oh, oops! My God.
Oopsie.
What a wash. Okay.
For
next
Louis.
guy, the Trade Bait Award. Who do you think is going to yield the best return for the Canucks in this offseason? I'm thinking it's going to be Nate Schmidt. I have a feeling he's probably going to want out because fuck carrying the blue line that he's going to have to carry next year. He's still got a ton of value. If they can recoup something better than the 3rd round pick from 2 years from now that they gave up, that's a pretty big win for this organization that has taken nothing but L's. But yeah, that'd be my choice. That or JT Miller.
I will piggyback off of this one. I think we're gonna go this particular episode. We focused a lot on the overall franchise, like rather than the individual players and their seasons a whole lot today, and that's because that was kind of had to take second place. I think on the next episode, which is going to be like after locker room cleanout day, like tomorrow, I believe is exit interviews, like with the media and everything.
Right.
Hopefully we're going to maybe try and get somebody in who got to talk to the players before they leave for the summer. But yeah, with Nate Schmidt, man, I remember in game 1, he got hit with a puck, he got hit in the face with a puck right on, like in the first period, I think. And I remember thinking at that time, like, oh my God, is this going to be an omen for his season? Because that's happened a lot before. Because that's happened before where like Louis Eriksson famously put the puck in his own net. The very first game, $6 million after signing that massive contract, first game he puts the puck in his own net. And Eric Goodbranson in his first game as a Canuck is the one who chases it down and runs into the net and just goes slamming into and knocking the net off its pegs. Literally, like, I just remember thinking at the time, like, oh my God, this is going to be the omen for his season, isn't it? And sure enough,
it was
for him. He was as good as I think he could have been, and oh my God, again, smiliest guy, great, like seemed like one of the nicest guys in the world, and God, I just knew the second they brought him in, they were gonna break him. They were going to just destroy that poor guy, Mr. Positivity. And yep, they did it. They broke Nate Schmidt, which is just awful, and this is probably it for him in Vancouver. I hope not. I actually liked
He's a
him
really
for what
fun
it was
interview,
worth.
and same for the same
Mhm.
reasons that I have with like Tyler Grayovac. Like, keep the guys that are entertaining around, because I like you need
Mhm.
something to talk about.
I liked him. I want him to stay
Yeah, I agree.
if they can. Yeah.
Okay, so next award,
I
the best goalie.
best goal. What now, you said? Best goalie aware. So I don't know fully what you're looking for there.
I don't remember typing
Uh,
aware. That's weird.
apparently aware is in there, but
Oh,
best
award.
goalie award. Okay, fair enough. Best goalie. I mean, okay. Thatcher Demko. We'll talk about Braden Holtby at a later time.
Yeah, after he's traded.
Uh, it's been it's been a tough year all around for everybody. I think in a normal season, I would have expected him to take a little step forward. Although Kevin Woodley did tweet out some interesting statistics about how actually his expected goals was higher than a lot of NHL starters. Like, it was higher than like Markstrom's. It was higher than, I believe, Tristan Jarry's. There's a huge list of like guys, including ones that made the playoffs, that he has a better expected goals statistic than. It's still not a good one, but it's one of those. But what the point of it was trying to go over the this is a guy this is a goalie who got stuck playing on a bad defensive team and couldn't bail them out every single night, which is, this might be news to us after getting years of this, but that's not normal. Like, good teams don't need their goalies to bail them out every single night the way the Canucks have done with Demko and Markstrom before him. And Braden Holtby couldn't do that, and you shouldn't have to. Statistics wise, it came back to really bite him this year.
Yeah, for me, best goalie was Artur Silovs. Just really brought it every night. Taxi
He was
squad.
perfect.
Actually, no, sorry.
I
was joking about the
in his
thing.
NHL appearances.
Duty.
He was flawless.
He was very good.
He
had a pretty ugly mustache.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You can't chirp the guy's mustache. Come on.
I know, I really can't. I'm the last person that should be chirping any kind of facial hair.
Self-burn.
Goalie of the year is Michael DiPietro for having to, like, speaking of management incompetence, we didn't even get into Michael DiPietro and how he was handled, but like, that guy is a fucking.
And the whole thing where the Blues basically bullied the Canucks into not letting him start more games at the end of the season. Oh my god!
Their own fucking farm team. Like, what the fuck?
Their own farm team. Like, good lord. Okay, we don't have time to do this now. Another day.
So yeah, last one, because the other two are pretty much a joke. Yeah. Best defenseman.
Best defenseman.
Best defenseman. The other three I had on our list were kind of a joke. Okay. Unless you want to do tallest defenseman, because that's a tough one.
I'm okay on that one. Okay. Best defenseman. It's Quinn Hughes, obviously, but obviously Quinn Hughes struggled this year. Like, there's no doubt about it that he had a bit of a sophomore slump. I don't know whether that's due to so much having to carry a line all of a sudden, because remember, he had Chris Tanev as a partner last year. That meant that while he was learning the ropes of the NHL last year, he didn't have to be like the main carrier of, like, he didn't have to, like, it wasn't if he made on the rare times that he made errors last year, it wasn't gonna they didn't have to worry that it was gonna cost them and find the way into the back of the net that often. Right. Because Tanev was there to be the cushion. This year, he had to carry lines the entire time. He had to carry a partner the entire time, which is asking a lot. And especially when the defensemen you're carrying, theoretically, are not really capable of playing the role and playing the lineup matches that you are. So he got kind of stuck, and his numbers took a hit because of it. And it's too bad. He'll come back next year better, I'm sure. Again, hopefully they find a proper partner for him. I think Schmidt should have been that guy, but the problem again was that they just didn't have the depth at defense to be comfortable putting them together because it would have just made the other two pairings so obviously inefficient that it would have
and they really
killed them.
needed someone fast to play with Alex Edler, and Nate Schmidt was the only option because Myers Edler, as we've talked about many times on this podcast, is a complete disaster. So
And-
Schmidt was the odd man out and pretty much roped into a role that he was not suited for, where he had to carry a very flat, lead-footed elderly man for most of the season.
And next year, not much will probably change. Not just because of the fact that there's probably not going to be a lot of defensemen out there to improve the situation, but also the fact that because Tyler Myers is on the team making $6 million, somebody has to play with him. You cannot put him in the press box as much as they probably should if the team was healthier. You can't, which means that you're guaranteed to have one defensive pairing that's a black hole in its own end. Or you have to have one it means you can't have a rookie playing, like Jack Rathbone, for example, playing with a more ideal partner. Somebody who shouldn't be getting stuck with Tyler Myers is going to have to get stuck with Tyler Myers, even if there is no one there that he should be playing with on a pairing because they don't fit what he does. Like, even at his best, even at what he does best, there is no one on that left side who fits what he brings properly. So you're kind of stuck. And hopefully they find ways to remedy that next season.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, in case they don't, this, I don't even know. Did I pick a best defenseman? I don't even know anymore.
No, you did not. I think you'll probably pick Hughes too. Although maybe you pick Schmidt.
No, I was actually...
Do you want to make an argument for Schmidt?
I was actually going to make an argument for Travis Hamonic because
that's a fair one.
I was not convinced about Hamonic at all in like the first stretch of games, but you couldn't fault him because he came in late. He had to quarantine. He missed all the training camp. He hadn't played in like over, a year and like several months. So like he was pretty much behind the 8 ball the entire start of the season. The Canucks were shit the entire time. Like he debuted anyway. Quinn Hughes looked awful to start. But over the last 2 months, even though the team was still pretty bad, I thought Hamonic was more than worth his contract, and maybe he gets another deal. He looked all right, didn't have injury concerns, so I mean that's a pretty big bonus. So for me, he was probably the team's best defenseman because after overcoming the early kind of speed bumps, I think he really found his stride and ended up being Hughes' best defenseman partner. He got time with Rathbone and was a really solid option for him too. So the fact that they have basically a Tanev incumbent, while Tanev is basically garnering praise over in Calgary on a much higher ticket, that's a pretty good win for the organization. So congrats. After 7 years, you finally got one that win outside of drafting.
Hamonic, I said this relatively recently, that if on a Stanley Cup or a playoff bound team, Travis Hamonic would be a perfect third pairing defenseman. He would be perfect as that final depth piece to shore up your blue line before a playoff run. Hamonic is that kind of player on a team that's ready for that kind of run. This year, what another guy who had to go above and beyond. He ended up having to play on a first pairing, even though that's probably not where he should be in the right scenario. Right. And he did okay. He did quite well. I would like to see Hamonic I would not mind seeing Hamonic return next year on on a third
on a decent
pairing.
Not on a 4x4 or a 6x6. But
I
could
could easily see it being a lock for opening night, playing with a good partner, with a right partner on that left side if they find an upgrade for him to play with Hughes. That's actually that's good bargain finding. You could spend a whole other hour talking about if they actually had cap room and space, or they weren't tight on, or supposedly tight on cash, they would have just spent the whole bank broke the bank for another guy, for a much more expensive player. But props where it's due. You found Hamonic, and he did well. And I would not mind seeing him return at all. I would totally be cool with that.
Agreed. Well,
And-
this one's run a little long, and fortunately,
well, that was kind of to be expected.
yeah, we had like holy shit, like just in the last like
And-
48 hours alone, we had like 87 topics to talk
Yeah.
about. We didn't even get
Yeah.
into the fact that like
And
the Comets played their last game. Like there's
yeah,
so much
so much has
news
changed.
compacted in the last 7 days.
This-
Like unbelievable.
I feel like, and I know this will probably take a few, like a little bit of extra time than like usually we do the pretty short ending. We come out of here, we say say the good night, talk about where we're find our stuff. I mean, this is the end of a very tough stretch for a lot of us, like in terms of from a hockey standpoint. Like, this technically started back in March of last year, where we didn't, nobody knew like how long we were going to be at this for. A lot of people, like especially like media and like friends of ours and like people on Twitter and stuff, have done such a great job during this pandemic and everything of like covering a hockey team and like doing all of these things and like talking about the team during this season that has been so trying. And just wanted to like shout out people, like some of the people who've been like, we have friends like like Wyatt Drancer and Harmon doing the armies every single game. Like holy, like those are the things sometimes you just look forward to at the end of the day, right? Like you look Daniel Wagner putting out amazing stuff at Passive Blues every single day during this whole season. Like, and I mean, the list could go on and on. Like, so many people, and like people who don't write, like there are fans who have just been great to interact with this season, and I could list every one of them on here. Every podcast who's done.
But we don't have to. We don't have time to do that, and I gotta pee. So let's not get into that.
Okay, this guy's got to pee. But I will. Okay, I will end it like this. I will end it like this. Cody, buddy, I appreciate you. Okay,
Aww.
like it's nuts that again we said at the top of the show that this has been one of the weirdest years. Talk about the weirdest possible year to decide to bring you in to do the show with me every single week. And honestly, this has been so much fun. Like it hasn't been the team. Well, the hockey and the stuff that we've had to talk about on the show this year hasn't been like that fun. Obviously, I will look back on the season for two reasons. One, the Botchford Project night, obviously. And then two, just doing the podcast with you every week. It's been an absolute treat and a pleasure. And we're not going anywhere yet. We still got a lot more episodes still to go.
This is the bad time to let everyone know the show is over. This is the final one.
Yeah, he's a UFA, and I'm not intending on re-signing. No, I'm just kidding. Cody is here Cody has got a lifetime contract as long as he wants it. He is here
until Lachlan starts living day to day.
Oh God, never. Listen, and yeah, honestly, just the fact of how much the show has gotten better, from our first episode together, we've now done, I think, close to 40 together already.
Pretty nuts.
We've done a great, this has been so much fun, just seeing us, seeing the product improve on our show every single week, more and more people coming and listening to us. And honestly, guys, like Cody, thank you. You're awesome. It's been a pleasure covering this season with you, even if the season itself hasn't been good. And I wouldn't have wanted to start
a Canucks podcast in any other season with anybody else but you, because my God, what a season to start doing a weekly podcast. Because holy shit, what a wild season to start covering hockey, man.
Yeah, again. Unreal. Bad seasons are not fun for content. Don't misconstrue what we're saying. It sucks covering a team when they're not good. It's the worst. It is so hard to find ways to enjoy it. The ways like stuff like this is how we try to find our best way to enjoy it. Is we have a conversation, we chat, we make jokes, and that's kind of just how. That's how we get through it. It's kind of, we're not so much finding ways to make fun of a bad season as we are a support group for ourselves, and hopefully
this is
basically
guys. this is like Canucks therapy or like a cathartic therapy where you get to vent because you can't really you can only vent so much to people that have no idea what you're talking about and they just look at you like a crazy person. So yeah, this is really great. It was really awesome too, like to sandwich in between like recording like episodes to see you get picked for the Botchford project, like a thing that I was picked for. So it was just like, that's my boy, especially considering, like, as I said in our earlier episode, it was very, very good to see that because, like I said, I helped a lot of people with their applications. And if you didn't get in and one of them did, this would have been the most awkward back half of a season, I think I could have possibly imagined. So
you traitor.
That would have been pretty ugly.
There's that, and we've been doing a bunch of, and I think also we've been doing, both of us have been getting opportunities to do a lot more things since this show has started. And I don't know if I can speak to that so much from your perspective. You pretty much had your own thing. You were very well established before you came on this show. But I know for me, if it wasn't for you coming on this show, I wouldn't be getting half the opportunities that I am right now. So
you'd have got there anyway, dude. You're killing it, and we're gonna try and kill it some more this off season, this summer. There's obviously a lot to cover. We have the expansion draft coming up. We have the entry draft. Lachlan is going to be taking a bit of a break as I can't marry him. And so he'll be fleeing the country for a little bit.
Actually, I'll actually still be doing the show during that time. I'm still available to do the show. So basically, just very quickly, because I know Cody wants to get going here. Here's the plan for going for the off season right now. We're gonna keep doing 2 episodes a week, every single week throughout the playoffs, through the draft, through the Seattle expansion draft, and then probably the first week of after free agency opens. After that, we're going to take a month off, and then we'll come back with just one episode a week up until the regular season when we'll go back to the two.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the preliminary plan. The shows might get a little bit more different in how we do things rather than what we do during the season. Yeah. They might be closer resembling to like what we do on Off the Post. They might be more interviews. They might be a lot of things. We're going to try some stuff. But we are not going anywhere anytime soon. We got lots more to come. We will be back with 2 episodes next week, and the week after, and the week after. We got lots more to come.
Yeah. Content's coming.
Thank you guys.
But
it's been great.
Thank you guys for listening. You can find myself at Cody Sievertson on Twitter. My site, commentsharvest.com. Bookmark it now before I change the name, because that's probably going to come depending on the Abbotsford AHL team's name. Lachlan, where can the fine folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Lach and the Crease. You can find my work at lachandthecrease.com. Tomorrow will be the last North Division Power Rankings ever. That'll be coming out tomorrow. So look out for that. Also, please go check out, if you haven't already, go to Canucks.com. You can find my Botchford Project article on Nils Höglander. And yeah, I have lots of content on the way in the next week. Actually, we've got some stuff I got some stuff in the works for the next week before we officially wrap this season up from a writing standpoint.
Yeah, I don't have that much content coming out. I got a review of like as we spoke about earlier, the very, very, very minimal Canucks prospects that they have in the AHL system that might come back and might not come back. And I'm going to do a deep dive into their season and what we can expect in Abbotsford next year. Until then, folks, thank you so much for tuning into this season, though. We really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed the show, check out our Patreon.
One.
Yeah, if you enjoyed the show, check out our
We're gonna go some exclusive.
Yeah, $5 a month. Yeah, $5 a month. Go check that out and subscribe on all your local platforms, including YouTube. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really, really helps us out, and we're gonna keep lots more shows to come.
And leave us reviews. Like, come on.
Yes, please.
This takes 2 seconds. Like we're doing this for you. Come on. Don't be jerks.
Don't shame the viewer, the viewers and the listeners. How dare you?
I leave reviews on their products. So
I think we should just, leave this episode on a thank you, Jim. How about that? Let's leave it on that. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Friday.
Bye.